The cowboy waited for a mail-order bride, but identical twins stepped off the wagon. Caleb Dawson woke before sunrise, as he did every day. The sky outside his small ranch house was still dark, painted with fading stars and a thin line of silver light on the horizon. The air carried the quiet chill of early morning, and the land stretched endlessly around him, wide fields, scattered fences, and the slow shapes of cattle resting in the distance. For many years, this had been his world. It was simple, honest, and lonely. He sat at the edge of his bed for a moment, rubbing his hands together, gathering the energy to start another day. The wooden floor creaked softly when he stood. Everything in the house showed signs of wear: chairs repaired more than once, a table with uneven legs, curtains faded by sun and dust. None of it bothered him. He had built this life himself, piece by piece. Caleb was known as a hardworking man. In town, people said he spoke little but kept his word. He helped neighbors when needed and never asked for more than what was fair. Yet when he returned home each evening, silence waited for him like an old companion. At first, he had welcomed that quiet. Years earlier, he told himself that work was enough. But slowly, without him noticing, the silence began to feel heavier. He made coffee over the stove and stepped outside with the steaming cup in his hand. The sky had begun to glow orange and pink. He watched it carefully, as if searching for something hidden in the colors. The ranch looked peaceful, but peace and loneliness often felt the same. As he walked toward the barn, memories followed him. He remembered arriving here as a young man, full of determination. He wanted land of his own, freedom, and a chance to prove himself. He worked through storms, long winters, and years when crops barely survived. He never gave up. The ranch became successful enough to sustain him, but success did not fill the empty spaces of his life. One afternoon months earlier, while in town, he overheard two older ranchers talking about mail-order brides. They spoke casually, almost jokingly, but the idea stayed with him long after he returned home. At first, he dismissed it. The thought of inviting a stranger into his life felt strange, but over time he began to wonder. What if he was not meant to live alone forever? The idea felt risky, but also hopeful. After many weeks of thinking, he sat at his table one evening and wrote a letter. He rewrote it several times, unsure how to describe himself. He did not want to sound like a dreamer or someone pretending to be better than he was. Finally, he wrote honestly. He described his ranch, his steady nature, and his wish to build a home with someone kind and sincere. He admitted he was not a man of many words, but he valued loyalty and patience. Sending the letter felt like stepping into unknown territory. For days afterward, he wondered if he had made a mistake. Then one morning, a reply arrived. The envelope was simple, but the handwriting was neat and careful. He opened it slowly, unsure what to expect. The letter inside was thoughtful and warm. The woman introduced herself as Eleanor Whitfield. She wrote about losing her parents, about wanting stability and respect, and about searching for a place where she could feel safe and valued. Her words felt genuine. Caleb read the letter more than once. Over the following months, they exchanged letters regularly. Each one revealed small details about their lives. Eleanor described her love for reading and her ability to manage a household. Caleb spoke about the seasons, the animals, and the quiet beauty of the land. Slowly, he began to imagine her walking through his house, bringing life into empty rooms. Hope returned to him in a way he had not felt in years. Eventually, they agreed she would travel to his ranch by wagon. The journey would take several days, but she promised she would come. As the date approached, Caleb felt nervous in ways he did not expect. He cleaned the house carefully, scrubbing floors and dusting shelves. He repaired a broken window frame and even bought fresh fabric from town to replace the old curtains. Neighbors noticed the changes and teased him gently, but he did not mind. The morning of her arrival felt different from any other day. He woke earlier than usual, unable to stay still. He checked the road several times, pacing between the house and the gate. Hours passed slowly. Finally, near midday, he saw dust rising in the distance. A wagon approached, moving steadily along the dirt road. Caleb's heart began to beat faster. This was real now. No more letters, no more imagining. The wagon rolled closer until he could see the driver clearly. The man raised a hand in greeting before guiding the horses to a stop. Caleb stepped forward, trying to appear calm despite the nervous energy inside him. The driver climbed down and smiled knowingly. "Looks like you've been waiting," he said. Caleb nodded slightly, unable to find words. Then the driver turned toward the back of the wagon and stepped aside. One woman climbed down first. She looked exactly as Caleb had imagined, calm, composed, with thoughtful eyes. Before he could speak, another woman stepped down behind her. Caleb blinked in confusion. They were identical, same face, same height, same expression. For a moment, time felt frozen. The wind moved through the grass, and the sound of the wagon wheels settling into the dirt filled the silence. The first woman stepped forward and spoke gently. "I am Alina Whitfield." The second woman stood beside her and added quietly, "And I am her sister, Eliza." Caleb felt the ground shift beneath his expectations. He had prepared for one future. Now two identical strangers stood before him, and nothing felt certain anymore. Caleb stood quietly for a few moments after the twins introduced themselves. His mind tried to catch up with what his eyes were seeing. The long months of letters had prepared him for one person, one voice, one future. Now two identical faces watched him carefully, waiting for his reaction. He cleared his throat and forced a polite smile. "Welcome," he said, stepping aside so they could move closer to the house. His voice sounded steady, but inside he felt uncertain. He noticed how both women carried small travel bags, dust from the road covering their skirts and shoes. The wagon driver unloaded their belongings while Caleb tried to gather his thoughts. Alina, at least he assumed it was Alina, spoke first. Her tone was calm and respectful, just like in the letters. "I hope our arrival has not caused trouble," she said gently. "I wrote to you about coming, but I did not explain everything clearly." Caleb nodded slowly. "I wasn't expecting to," he admitted honestly. Eliza gave a small, knowing smile. "Most people don't." There was no mockery in her voice, only quiet confidence. Caleb noticed that although they looked exactly alike, their energy felt different. Alina stood slightly behind, observing carefully, while Eliza's eyes moved around the ranch with curiosity. He invited them inside. The small house suddenly felt crowded, as if the walls had moved closer together. Alina paused at the doorway, looking around with thoughtful attention. She noticed the new curtains immediately. "You prepared for my arrival," she said softly. Caleb felt embarrassed but nodded. They sat at the table, and for a few moments no one spoke. Outside, the wagon driver finished securing the horses, and the sound of distant cattle drifted through the open window. Finally, Alina explained. After their parents passed away, she and Eliza had relied on each other for everything. They had lived together their entire lives and rarely separated. When Alina decided to respond to Caleb's letter, she had struggled with the idea of traveling alone to a distant place. Eliza insisted on coming, not to interfere, but to ensure her sister felt safe. "I hope you understand," Alina said quietly. "This was not meant to deceive you." Caleb listened carefully. He appreciated honesty even when it brought complications. Still, he could not ignore the practical challenges. His ranch house had only one extra room. He had planned meals, routines, and future conversations based on one person, not two, but sending them away immediately felt wrong. "You are both welcome to stay for now," he said after a moment. "We can figure things out step by step." Relief showed on Alina's face. Eliza nodded with quiet gratitude. The first evening felt strange but peaceful. Caleb prepared a simple meal, and the three of them shared stories. Alina spoke about their previous home, about learning household skills from their mother. Eliza added small details, sometimes finishing her sister's sentences in a way that showed deep familiarity between them. As night fell, Caleb noticed how the presence of others changed the house. The silence he had known for years disappeared, replaced by soft conversation and the sound of footsteps. The next morning began early. Caleb expected the twins to sleep late after their journey, but when he stepped into the kitchen, Eliza was already awake, watching the sunrise through the window. "You wake early," she said casually. "So do you," Caleb replied. She smiled slightly. "Travel teaches patience. Waiting for sunrise feels easier than waiting for a moving wagon." Later, Alina joined them, immediately asking how she could help. She listened carefully as Caleb explained daily routines, feeding animals, checking fences, preparing supplies. Alina approached each task with seriousness, determined to learn quickly. Eliza, however, showed curiosity beyond chores. She asked Caleb about his past, about why he chose a life far from towns and crowds. He answered briefly at first, unused to sharing personal thoughts. Yet her questions felt sincere rather than intrusive. Over the next few days, the ranch slowly adjusted to their presence. Alina organized the kitchen, bringing order to items Caleb had arranged without much thought. She repaired torn fabric and made simple improvements that made the house feel warmer. Eliza helped outside, showing surprising strength and adaptability. She learned quickly, asking questions when unsure but never pretending to know more than she did. Despite their efforts, Caleb sensed tension between the sisters at times. They spoke privately in low voices, their expressions serious. Whenever he approached, they changed the subject. In town, news spread quickly. Neighbors visited under the excuse of welcoming guests, but their curious glances revealed amusement and surprise. Caleb remained polite but avoided long conversations about the situation. One evening, after returning from town, he found Alina sitting alone on the porch. The sunset painted her face in warm light, but her expression seemed distant. "Are you comfortable here?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Yes, it is peaceful." Then she added, "Peaceful in a way I am not used to." He sat beside her, unsure what to say next. The letters between them had felt natural, but face-to-face conversation carried different weight. "I hope bringing Eliza was not unfair," she said quietly. Caleb thought carefully before answering. "It was unexpected, but I understand wanting support." She looked relieved. Inside the house, Eliza watched through the window but did not interrupt. As days passed, Caleb began noticing subtle differences between the twins more clearly. Alina moved carefully, choosing her words with precision. Eliza spoke freely, sometimes teasing him gently about his serious nature. The contrast created a strange balance that both confused and intrigued him. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, Eliza asked suddenly, "Do you believe people truly know each other through letters?" Caleb paused. "I thought so," he said honestly. "And now?" she asked. He hesitated. "Now I think letters show one side. Living together shows the rest." Eliza nodded thoughtfully, as if she expected that answer. That night, as Caleb lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling, replaying the past few days in his mind. He felt grateful for the warmth the twins brought into his home, yet uncertainty lingered. He wondered if he had misunderstood something important, if the future he imagined might be more complicated than he planned. Outside, the wind moved gently across the fields. Inside, two identical strangers slept under his roof, each carrying secrets he had not yet fully discovered. Life on the ranch slowly settled into a rhythm, but beneath the calm surface, change was quietly taking shape. Caleb noticed it in small moments, the way Alina moved carefully through daily routines, and the way Eliza seemed to watch everything with deeper curiosity. The house no longer felt empty, yet it also no longer felt simple. Morning chores became shared work. Alina focused on keeping the house organized. She took pride in cooking meals that felt warm and comforting after long hours outside. She often asked Caleb practical questions about supplies, storage, and winter preparations. Her attention to detail impressed him. She wanted to make the ranch run smoothly, and she approached each task with patience. Eliza preferred outdoor work. She walked the fields with Caleb, helping mend fences or guide cattle. She was not afraid of getting her hands dirty, and she laughed easily when mistakes happened. Sometimes she asked questions that surprised him, questions not about ranch work but about his thoughts, his past, and his reasons for choosing solitude. One afternoon, while they rested near a shaded tree after working, Eliza looked toward the wide horizon and said, "You built all this alone. That must have been difficult." Caleb shrugged slightly. "It was work. I focused on what needed to be done." "But what about what you needed?" she asked. He did not answer right away. Few people had ever asked him that directly. "I thought work was enough," he finally said. Eliza nodded slowly, as if she understood more than he had said. Meanwhile, Alina observed quietly from a distance. She rarely joined long conversations but listened carefully when others spoke. Sometimes Caleb felt she was studying him, measuring whether the life she imagined through letters truly existed. Days passed, and subtle tension between the sisters began to show more clearly. It was not loud or angry, but it lived in small pauses, quick glances, and unfinished sentences. Caleb sensed it, but did not know how to address it. One evening, after dinner, Alina asked Caleb to read aloud one of the letters he had received from her months earlier. She said she wanted to hear it again, to remember how everything began. Caleb retrieved the letter from a small wooden box where he kept them safe. As he read the words aloud, the room felt quiet and heavy. The letter spoke of hope, honesty, and dreams of building a shared life. Listening to it now felt different than when he first received it. When he finished, Eliza stood silently near the window. Alina looked down at her hands. "Those letters meant a lot to me," Caleb said softly. Alina hesitated before speaking. "I need to tell you something," she said. The air in the room shifted. She explained that writing had never been easy for her. Expressing feelings through words felt difficult, and she worried that her thoughts might seem plain or uninteresting. So, when she first responded to Caleb's advertisement, Eliza had helped her shape the letters. "At first, it was just small changes," Alina said. "But over time, we both wrote parts of them." Caleb felt a wave of surprise and confusion. He looked from one sister to the other, trying to understand what this meant. "So the person I came to know through letters," he began. Eliza stepped forward gently. "Was both of us," she said. "But the feelings were real. We never meant to mislead you." Caleb sat quietly, processing the information. The connection he believed he had built suddenly felt uncertain. He wondered which parts of the letters came from Alina's heart and which came from Eliza's perspective. "I needed courage," Alina said softly. "Eliza helped me find words I could not easily say myself." There was honesty in her voice, but also vulnerability. Caleb felt conflicted. He was not angry, but he needed time to understand his own emotions. The letters had been the foundation of everything. Now that foundation felt more complex than he imagined. That night, sleep did not come easily. He walked outside, staring at the stars while replaying past conversations in his mind. He remembered specific phrases from the letters, thoughtful questions, warm humor, deep reflections. He began to notice similarities between those words and the way Eliza spoke during daily conversations. The realization unsettled him. Over the next few days, interactions between the three of them changed slightly. Alina seemed quieter, as if waiting for his judgment. Eliza gave him more space, avoiding long personal discussions. The distance made Caleb uneasy. He missed the growing sense of connection that had filled the house earlier. One afternoon, while repairing tools in the barn, Alina approached him. She stood near the doorway, sunlight behind her. "I know this changes things," she said gently. "If you feel disappointed, I understand." Caleb looked at her carefully. "I am not disappointed in you," he said honestly. "I just need to understand what was real." "All of it was real," she replied quickly. "I meant every word, I just needed help saying it." Her honesty touched him, yet questions remained. Later that evening, Eliza joined him outside near the fence line. The sky was turning orange and the wind moved softly through the grass. "I should have told you sooner," she said quietly. "Why didn't you?" he asked. She hesitated. "Because I saw how happy you were reading those letters. I did not want to break something good." Caleb appreciated her honesty, but the situation still felt complicated. "You see things clearly," he said after a moment. Eliza smiled faintly. "Sometimes clarity makes life harder, not easier." Their conversation felt natural, comfortable in a way that surprised him. As days passed, Caleb realized he was standing at an emotional crossroads. The life he imagined with Alina through letters now felt different in reality. Meanwhile, his growing understanding with Eliza felt unexpected yet genuine. He began to question whether he had fallen in love with a person or with a shared voice created through collaboration. The ranch itself seemed to reflect his thoughts, peaceful on the surface, yet filled with unseen movement beneath. One evening, while sitting alone on the porch, Caleb watched the road stretching toward the horizon. He knew that sooner or later decisions would have to be made. The twins could not stay in uncertainty forever. Neither could he. Inside the house, Alina and Eliza spoke quietly, their voices low but serious. Though he could not hear their words, he sensed that change was approaching. The days that followed felt heavier than before. The quiet comfort that had slowly grown in the house now carried tension beneath it. Caleb noticed how conversations became shorter, pauses became longer, and even small moments felt filled with unspoken thoughts. Morning routines continued as usual. The animals still needed feeding, fences still needed repair, and meals still had to be prepared. Yet everything felt slightly different. Alina moved through the house with careful calmness, but her smiles no longer reached her eyes the way they had during the first days. Eliza remained helpful outside, but she avoided long conversations with Caleb unless necessary. Caleb understood why. The truth about the letters had changed the balance between them. No one said it openly, but all three felt the weight of it. One evening, a neighbor stopped by with news. The wagon driver who had brought the twins would return through town in a few days, heading back toward their original home. The information lingered in Caleb's mind long after the neighbor left. The return of the wagon meant something important. A decision could no longer be delayed. That night, the three of them sat together at the dinner table. The air felt tense, even though no one spoke of serious matters at first. Finally, Alina placed her hands gently on the table and spoke. "I heard about the wagon," she said softly. Caleb nodded. She took a deep breath before continuing. "If you feel uncertain about me, about us, I do not want to remain where I am not truly wanted." Her voice was calm, but Caleb could hear the effort behind it. "I came here because I believed we could build something real," she continued. "But I also want honesty, not obligation." Eliza sat quietly, watching both of them. Caleb felt a mixture of respect and sadness. Alina's words were brave. She was not asking for reassurance she did not believe. She was asking for truth. "I never wanted to hurt either of you," he said slowly. "This situation is not what any of us expected." Alina gave a small, understanding nod. Later that night, Caleb walked outside alone. The stars were bright, and the wind carried the scent of dry grass. He sat on the porch, thinking about everything that had happened since the wagon first arrived. He remembered the excitement he felt reading Alina's letters. He remembered imagining a future shaped by those words. But he also remembered the growing connection he felt during daily conversations with Eliza, moments when he felt truly understood without needing to explain himself fully. The realization made him uneasy. He did not want to hurt Alina. She had traveled far with hope in her heart, yet he also knew that pretending feelings existed when they did not would be unfair to everyone. The next morning, he found Eliza working near the barn. She was focused on repairing a broken fence post, but when she noticed him approaching, she stopped and wiped dust from her hands. "We need to talk," she said gently before he could speak. They stood facing each other, the quiet land stretching around them. "I know things are complicated," she continued, "and I want you to know that I never came here to stand between you and my sister." Caleb looked at her carefully. "I know that." She shook her head slightly. "No, you need to truly understand it. If staying here makes things harder for you or for Alina, I can leave. I will find work in town or travel back with the wagon. My sister deserves happiness." Her words surprised him. "You would leave?" he asked. "If it helps bring clarity," she said simply. Caleb realized then how deeply she cared, not only for her sister but for honesty itself. Later that afternoon, Alina approached him near the porch. She held a folded piece of paper in her hand but did not open it. "I have been thinking," she said softly. "When I wrote to you, I imagined a certain kind of life, but being here has helped me understand myself better, too." Caleb listened carefully. "I wanted security," she admitted. "A stable place where I could belong, but belonging cannot be forced. It must grow naturally." Her honesty made his chest feel tight. "I do care about you," she continued, "but I sense that your heart is searching for something different than what I can give." Caleb remained silent, unsure how to respond without causing pain. Alina smiled gently, though her eyes showed emotion. "It is all right. Sometimes understanding comes later than we expect." That evening, all three of them gathered on the porch as the sun set. The sky glowed with warm colors, and the air felt calm despite the tension inside them. Eliza broke the silence. "We should decide before the wagon arrives. Staying in uncertainty helps no one." Caleb nodded slowly. He knew she was right. He spent most of the night awake, thinking deeply about the past months. He remembered moments of laughter, quiet conversations, and the way each sister had brought something different into his life. By morning, clarity finally arrived. When the sun rose, he asked both sisters to meet him outside near the fence line. The light touched the field softly, creating a peaceful setting that contrasted with the seriousness of the moment. He began by thanking Alina. He spoke honestly about the respect he felt for her courage and kindness. He acknowledged how much her letters had meant to him and how grateful he was for the chance to know her. Then he admitted something difficult. "The connection I imagined from the letters feels different now," he said carefully. "Not wrong, just different." Alina listened calmly, though emotion moved behind her eyes. He then turned to Eliza. His voice softened slightly. "With you, I feel something unexpected. Not planned, not imagined, but real." Silence followed his words. Alina closed her eyes briefly as if she had already known. Eliza looked stunned, unsure how to respond. Caleb continued gently. I never intended for things to happen this way. But honesty matters more than comfort. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Alina smiled softly, surprising them both. I suspected this, she said quietly. Sometimes the heart understands before the mind accepts. The tension that had lived between them began to fade. Not completely, but enough to allow space for acceptance. The decision had been made, and though it carried emotion and change, it also brought relief. For the first time in days, the air felt lighter. The morning after Caleb made his decision felt quiet but different. The tension that had filled the ranch during the past days had softened, replaced by a calm understanding between all three of them. Nothing felt rushed anymore. Instead, each moment carried a sense of acceptance. Alina woke early and stepped outside alone. The sunrise spread golden light across the fields, and she stood watching it as if trying to memorize every detail. She had come here with expectations, hopes shaped by letters and dreams of a new beginning. Now she stood at a different kind of beginning, one she had not imagined, yet one that felt honest. Caleb noticed her from the porch but did not interrupt. He sensed she needed space to think. Over the past weeks, he had come to respect her strength. She did not pretend everything was easy, but she faced reality with quiet courage. Later that morning, Eliza joined Caleb near the barn. She seemed thoughtful, more serious than usual. Are you sure about yesterday? She asked gently. Caleb nodded. I have never been more certain about anything difficult. Eliza looked down for a moment, processing his words. I did not expect things to turn this way, she admitted. Neither did I, he said honestly. But sometimes truth appears when we stop trying to control what should happen. She gave a small smile, though uncertainty remained in her eyes. The future felt real now, and with reality came responsibility. Inside the house, Alina prepared breakfast for all three of them. The meal felt warm and familiar, yet also like a farewell. They spoke about small things, the weather, travel routes, and memories from childhood. Laughter returned briefly, reminding them that despite emotional challenges, genuine care still existed between them. As the day moved forward, preparations began quietly. Alina packed her belongings with calm efficiency. She folded clothing carefully and wrapped personal items with care. There was sadness, but not bitterness. Instead, there was acceptance. At one point, Caleb offered to help, but she shook her head gently. I need to do this myself, she said with a soft smile. He respected her choice. Eliza spent part of the afternoon working outside, giving her sister privacy. When she returned to the house later, she paused at the doorway, watching Alina finish packing. Are you all right? Eliza asked softly. Alina nodded. Yes, I think I am stronger than I realized. They shared a quiet moment together, years of shared history passing silently between them. You do not need to stay for me, Alina added gently. I want you to follow your own path. Eliza looked surprised. You are certain? Yes, Alina said firmly. We have always protected each other, but sometimes love means letting someone grow beyond familiar boundaries. Her words carried warmth rather than sadness. The next day, the wagon driver arrived as expected. Dust rose behind the wheels as the wagon approached the ranch. Caleb felt a mixture of relief and emotion as he watched it come closer. The driver greeted them with a friendly nod, sensing immediately that decisions had been made. Alina approached Caleb first. She looked calm, her expression steady. I want you to know that I do not regret coming here, she said sincerely. This journey helped me understand myself more clearly. I am grateful you came, Caleb replied. You brought kindness into my home. They shared a respectful embrace, not as people parting in failure, but as individuals who had shared an important chapter. Then Alina turned to Eliza. The sisters hugged tightly, holding on to each other longer than words could express. Their bond remained strong, even as their paths began to separate. I will write to you, Alina said softly. I expect nothing less, Eliza replied with a gentle laugh. When Alina climbed into the wagon, she looked back once more at the ranch. The house, the fields, and the open sky seemed different now, not as symbols of what she lost, but as reminders of growth. The wagon slowly rolled away, carrying her toward a new future. Caleb and Eliza stood together watching until it disappeared beyond the horizon. The silence that followed felt peaceful rather than heavy. Life on the ranch continued, but it changed in small, meaningful ways. Without forcing anything, Caleb and Eliza began building a partnership based on honesty. They worked side by side, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses through real experiences rather than imagined expectations. Some days were filled with laughter. Other days brought challenges, misunderstandings, and moments when they needed patience. Yet each obstacle strengthened their connection. Eliza brought new energy into the ranch. She suggested improvements, planted a small garden near the house, and encouraged Caleb to attend more gatherings in town. Slowly, he found himself opening up more than he had in years. One evening, while sitting on the porch together, Eliza said, "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" Caleb smiled slightly. "Every day, but I believe we ended up exactly where we needed to be." She nodded, leaning back as they watched the sunset. Letters from Alina arrived occasionally. She wrote about finding work in a nearby town and discovering independence she had never imagined before. Her words carried confidence and happiness, reassuring them that her path was unfolding well. Seasons changed. The fields shifted from green to gold and back again. The ranch grew stronger, reflecting the steady effort of two people building something meaningful together. One afternoon months later, Caleb paused near the gate where the wagon had first arrived. He remembered the confusion, the uncertainty, and the unexpected turns that followed. He realized that the life he once planned had changed completely, yet the result felt more authentic than anything he had imagined. He had waited for one future. Instead, life brought him a lesson in honesty, courage, and unexpected connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he walked back toward the house where Eliza waited, light glowing warmly through the window. The ranch no longer felt like a place of loneliness. It felt like home,